Good science, by definition, allows for more than one opinion. Otherwise, you merely have the will of one man, which is the basis of cult.
If it's not in frame, it doesn't exist.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown and a loser?
Where you been?
Drunk. Wendy? Darling? Light of my life.
What's your one purpose in life?
To explode, of course.
I like death with sex. How about you, Casey? You like sex with death?
Yeah, so fuck up and die.
Oh, the old grand booty, dude.
Dude, you're ready. The grand booty.
The grand booty, man.
Yeah. So, this is the Cult of Cinema Knowledge podcast. That's Jordan the Booty Howard over there. And I'm Levi. What's up?
You can't hear me. You can't hear me waving. I was waving to everybody.
I can hear it. I'll add a swish sound effect. Just kidding.
Yeah,
I
please,
definitely won't.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah. You want production?
You imagine me going through the
pod.
fucking effort to add a swish sound? One day I will when I'm not dead inside.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Once everyone goes to Patreon and subscribes to Cult of Cinema Knowledge.
You know what brings me a little bit of joy in my life, Jordan? Is film, and then specifically this film.
Pastel colors.
This film was just delightful. I don't know. It's just like you just always got like a little smile on your face when you're watching it. I'm of course talking about. So we're doing directors. We did. Who did we do? We did Denis Villeneuve, and then we did James Cameron. This week we're doing Wes Anderson, which if you are familiar, he's kind of got like a gap of like, he's got a style that evolves, but then he went like full crazy diorama. And this is like his first big movie like that. And this was probably his most successful movie. So of course I'm talking about the Grand Budapest Hotel, which is arguably his most popular. I would say this.
Easily his most popular movie.
Really? I would say Fantastic Mr. Fox and this are neck and neck, but
okay, sure. I'll give you neck and neck because
audience-wise,
I think when you can market to children.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
You know, that is thus you're getting like the diehard fans like us, and you're getting the casual viewer who's like, oh, a cute, quirky animation.
Yeah, exactly. That's more of a accessible kind of, because it is like a kid's like, oh, and it's like claymation, like Wallace and Gromit,
Yeah.
And they go and see that. But Grand Budapest, I'm trying to remember the conversation happening around it, because it got nominated for some Academy Awards and stuff, like best, like the big ones, I think. But I don't think it won anything.
My biggest takeaway from it was the cast is so much more diverse. And this was around the time period when Wes Anderson really did, and it's wild because I was actually going back and looking at his filmography, and he's had budget wise and the option to work with other actors, and he has clearly he's had other bigger names inside of his projects, but he's typically kept the same cast of characters.
Yeah, and he pulls in a fucking there's obviously actors that he likes to work with and they like to work with him. I mean, like Jason Schwartzman's in every one of his movies practically. Bill Murray and him are a staple. But it's
those two, and then Owen Wilson. That's those are the three that he and the Wilsons, I guess technically the.
Okay, but you never see Luke Wilson, I feel like, in anything anymore, which is too bad. I like old Luke because.
Oh, I know, yeah.
I kind of liked him more because my favorite Wes Anderson movie probably is still Royal Tenenbaums. And Luke Wilson's just he's such a sad boy in that one.
I know. Well, dude, yeah, I love his character, and I like his Wes Anderson's soundtracks are so pivotal, and it's great in Royal Tenenbaums, but. I mean, I think that his greatest soundtrack is Life Aquatic, but I'm really biased because that's my favorite movie.
Yeah, we'll get into it. I just want to do a quick correction. I had to look it up because I'm like, no, that doesn't sound right. So this was nominated for several Academy Awards, and it won 4, actually. It won 4 Oscars, which I don't remember doing that. that did that, but it was all like the technical stuff. You know what I mean? It won actually best score, which it totally deserves. Best costume, best makeup, and best production design. So that's all obvious.
Well,
the fact that it didn't win best cinematography, I need to know and see what won that year, because the cinematography in this is just such a treat. This This movie is visual candy. Like
it is. Like I get like why you wouldn't like this movie just for the fact that it's so
quirky. Like, I hate to use that word.
Right, and it's so symmetrical, and how everything is filmed.
He shoots everything on like a 90-degree angle anyway, you know, it's just like...
Yeah. He films so straight on, and it's so set, and it almost seems like the camera stays still, and then he just moves the set around it.
Yeah, that's why I say his visual style feels very, especially because it's like, you know, his previous era of movies where it's like they got a little weird, but they were like more, I guess you'd say, grounded in like the set design and everything like that, like Royal Tenenbaums. Like, obviously they have the house and everything, and it feels very grand, but it's not like insane over the top like Grand Budapest or the upcoming Asteroid City
his Asteroid City, that newest film.
He goes full.
He goes more Wes Anderson every time. And so
But it looks fun. I don't know. That's fun.
We're getting ahead of ourselves here.
It's
my turn.
Did you write one? Were you inspired?
I didn't because I only got like the first like paragraph done of my synopsis because I forgot to. Last night I finished the movie and I started writing the synopsis, and then I was like, okay, I'll come and I'll finish it today after work. And I got home and 100% did not. I literally sat down and it was like 6:40 when I sat down to go, and we were gonna talk, and I was like, oh shit. So I started writing a little bit more. But anyways, I can kind of I'll read a little bit what I have here.
Yeah,
and then
briefly. What do you got? Try and summarize it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll riff off of it real quick because it's like this. So the Grand Budapest Hotel. An author in travels in the 60s. He stays at the Grand Budapest Hotel, a once lavish monument in the mountains of the Republic of Zubrauka, I think is how you say it.
Yeah.
They don't ever say it in the movie, do they?
It's all text. Yeah.
It's all text and title cards. Anyways, so Zubrauka. As fate would have it, he meets the owner, Mr. Zero Mustafa, played by F. Murray Abraham. After humble introductions, the author is invited to dinner so Zero can tell his story on how he became the owner of the hotel. We go back to 1932, months before the war, when the hotel was flourishing. Zero was hired to work as a lobby boy under the command of the legendary concierge M. Gustav, played by Ralph Fiennes, who becomes his mentor and confidant. Gustav efficiently manages the hotel and staff while also attending the more personal needs of his guests, so long as they meet the criteria of being old, wealthy, and blonde. Madame D, played by Tilda Swinton, which was great. She like melted into that role. It was awesome. Is his latest suitor. They're saying their tender goodbyes in a hurried fashion, and then this is that's where I stopped. I was just like, that's it's like kind of dead, just middle sentence. But so that's the setup, and later you find out that Tilda Swinton's character has been murdered, and Ralph Fiennes' character, he's framed for it essentially, or at least he's like a
pretty
suspect.
much. Yeah, he's pretty much framed.
And that's like that. This movie has so much more comedy in it than I remembered, because this is only my second viewing.
It's hilarious.
Anyways, so the cops come to like interrogate him, and it's cool because it's like the military police. But anyways, they come to interrogate him. He runs away. He gets caught. He goes to prison. Zero has to get him out of prison, and so he meets a woman, Agatha, and they get together, and Agatha bakes these beautiful cakes. And
Mendel's always the best.
Yeah, Mendel's, yeah. And so Mendel's is like this like bakery in this town, and everyone eats them and everyone respects them. And I love it's like, yeah, they don't cut them up when they're like cutting all the food up
because they'd be destroying art. You know,
they're
exactly literally knife and chisel. They're like chisels in hammer shaped. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, anyways, they sneak in. They smuggle what is that, like excavating tools, digging tools, and so they break out of prison, And then Ralph Fiennes' character, Gustav, he breaks out. He goes and he meets one of the butlers of Madame D, who was framed for the murder also, or like he knew the information. But then I don't know, Madame D's fascist son, who, oh my god, see, this happens every time we do it, because it's like I had it all planned out in my head, and then now as I talk about it, I like hit tangents and start fucking going everywhere. But the main focus, there's a painting, Boy with Apple, and that is something that Ralph Fiennes stills, and that becomes kind of like the focal point of the whole story, is that her evil children are trying to get the painting back because they don't believe that he should have it. Because Ralph Fiennes,
it's a whole conspiracy to like cover up the murder, so that so the kids can inherit the will. Because there's a second, there's a second will that is basically says in the event of her murder, then all her shit goes to Gustav.
And then that is.
Which is what happens. It's
they find the painting in a daring battle between the bad guys and the like police, the like military police. They're fighting in the hotel, and they fall out the window and they're hanging from the painting, and like, you know, the painting is where the second will was hidden by the butler originally, who got murdered and who was framed originally for the murder. And anyways, so they find it, and then happily ever after, everyone's there, and Ralph Fiennes actually dies off screen in conversation when we come back to 1968, when he's talking to the young author who died in 1985, where the story begins, and it kind of all comes full circle. It's a beautiful movie.
I mean, it's like even though like obviously the main crux of the movie is in the 30s, but it's like, you know, the story of a girl inspired by an author who had a journey, and like it's like a story. It's like a little nesting egg. It's like a story within a story within a story within a story. But like all the outside layers, other than obviously them at the hotel in the 60s, is a little bit more substantial.
They'll cut back to that.
But like 85% of the movie is in the 30s.
Yeah, and you're in the 60s now, and it's basically like a substitute or stand-in for like Soviet era. The hotel gets stripped down, and it looks really like bare and like just really like, I don't even know what that, like sterile. It's all just like brick. Instead of, like the beautiful palace that it was in the 30s. And so it's cool you come back to it, and like and like Zero's kind of like he's a sad human being because he's kind of like stuck in this monolith, but it's like all the memories, and it's really charming because he keeps it so that he can remember Agatha. It's like that's what Wes Anderson does so well, is like his like tender beauty is kind of, it has such a tinge of sadness in it. And everything's just so human.
He definitely got like such a like a melancholy, because it's like almost like it is like a childlike whimsy, because it's like well, I'm sure we'll read later, but one of the Reddit commenters was like, it always feels like a storybook or something, and
that
it does. And I always forget his movies are all R-rated, pretty much, with a couple exceptions. But so many of them are like full of tons of cursing and like sexual references and like sometimes some violence, and like and this movie, I always am kind of shocked when I'm just like, oh, that was like that old lady sucking him off. Like I'm like, I forgot that was in this, and there's like old lady titties and like some pretty good violence. Yeah, Jeff Goldblum's fingers get chopped off.
Yeah, when those fingers get fucking chopped, I was like, oh, it's like took me by surprise. I knew it was gonna happen. I remember it happening. I just like was totally like, oh my god, I forgot that. Like Wes Anderson kind of.
You're always surprised.
Brutal.
He does. Well, he does it so sparingly. That's what makes it so effective, because it's like in the escape scene when they're escaping from the prison, and the one guy jumps down and kills all the officers and just knives them all to death, but it ends with them like pulling the knives out of each other's chest and shit. It's like some Saving Private Ryan, but it's weird because it looks like a fucking storybook cartoon. There's just Harvey Keitel with all his drawn on tattoos. Like,
oh, dude, I love that too. All his tattoos were like, they were all like legit too. They're all like based on
that's
reality
a lot of fun.
and shit. And like, that's what, dude, I love Wes Anderson's imagination is so cool. He'll bend he just kind of like bends reality.
It
He
is
does-
like, yeah, it's like history adjacent, but like
Right,
not the way that like Quentin Tarantino does it.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be similar to Quentin Tarantino, but he does it in more of like a novel style.
It's
not
like a different color. Like
uh,
Zambroska is not a real country or whatever. It's just like it's a fill-in, and it's like the the fascist army. They're not Nazis, but they may as well be. But it's like they're their own version
right.
of it, which is
They have like the Z insignias, the SS.
Yeah.
Like they, it's all kind of like blended together. And I love like the black coats and stuff. And he's just like, when Ralph Fiennes is like, oh, the black is so drab.
I know.
He's like sick and tired of it. Yeah.
So anyway, backing it up though. So this was only your second time watching it, you said, right?
I'm pretty sure. I like
Something like
I've seen
that,
it
though.
since my third,
Yeah.
if that. Like I remember seeing it in theaters and liking it a lot, but I was so I'm I don't know. I'm a little like sassy.
You're
boy that-
a hipster. Just admit it.
I'm a hipster, sure. Whatever you want to call it. I was expecting like his normal cast.
I
don't know.
wasn't.
He just,
I wasn't
he
ready
started
for it
changing
when
a
I
lot.
first saw
Yeah.
it too, because this was his first big change. Because it's like I'm pretty sure, and I mean, this is just off the top of my head. Pretty sure it went like Darjeeling, then it went
right.
Fantastic Mr. Fox, then it went this, and you can obviously tell that a lot of Fantastic Mr. Fox like production design basically being stop motion and miniatures, like they took that into full scale essentially, and where the sets were like even crazier, and obviously this won best production design because it's just so over the top with it, and that I wasn't expecting when I first saw it in theaters. Like I was surprised because I was expecting Rushmore or like where it ends on the slow-mo scene of some 60s pop song, like you know what I mean, and it wasn't that. It didn't have any of that. There was no needle drops. This was all an original score, which all his other movies that we were used to was that.
We're all like, it's all like classic music, or like it's all rock and roll. It's all like actual, already produced music. Like that's the thing, and like that's
I think
why
that is a
said
big
my
defining
favorite
point because
soundtrack.
Darjeeling and like Life Aquatic, like they feel shot very differently, but like the way the music goes, like it's obviously still his style, but I think that was, once he did the stop motion, that was a huge defining point of his movies because, I mean, he's only done, and then he obviously went back to stop motion, but then you got to see French Connection, but it's very much this as well, obviously. This style, this is his style now that he's into now.
Yeah. And I'm 100% all for it. I like.
No,
that's
I
the thing.
understand
I
the
like
hesitation
Budapest.
originally, though, where it's just kind of like,
Yeah. Right. Well, and I think it's because it's like Darjeeling was the Stray. I feel like that started, like he started getting his like pastel colors, and he loved shooting. Darjeeling's a little more cramped on a train, and like a little more like it's definitely got like it's got that like that nomadic movement.
Yeah.
Like, and it still has that it has more of a tinge of like broken people and manhood and what it's like to be.
all his stories very much have like this like Arrested Development, not the show, the actual type of being stuck in the adolescence, and this like kind of
and
like coming of age and
wealthy people, like,
jealousy, and he does all that really well. Like, so all of his story beats kind of stay the same, but I honestly think that, so this was probably my fifth or sixth time watching it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I really do think this movie is his best movie, though. Like, I don't know if it's my favorite necessarily.
Oh,
I think it's a masterpiece, but it is. It's very, very good. It's like I can't really think of any problems with it outside of personal taste. You know what I mean? But I love
and that I totally agree. I think that it, like, every performance is phenomenal. I love narration. I've said that before on the pod, and I love when like a story's narrated, and then I love how it's like it opens. The beginning is Royal Tenenbaums, 100%, dude. That girl.
Yeah.
It's like the 80s. Everything's dressed. The book, and that's what I love, dude. All of his movies are like, that's his whole point, is that he's making a movie that's supposed to be like a novel jumped out onto screen.
Uh-huh.
And so it's like every one of his movies that he has a lot of like novels represented, and like a lot of like just books, period, just being shot and framed. It's like it's beautiful.
I
what he
think
does.
I think this movie. I think I was trying to narrow it down, and I think the reason why this movie I think maybe feels the like really strongest to me is all his other previous movies, and even the movies. I mean, other than Isle of Dogs or whatever, has been a like ensemble cast where it's like about all the characters and stuff like that. But this movie is primarily like there's obviously really great side characters, but it is primarily the main two characters. It's primarily Zero and Gustav, and then also like Agatha, I guess. She'd be like the third.
I would say barely. Honestly.
Barely. She's not in it as
I would say
much.
the brothers or the sons.
The antagonist,
are
yeah. It's like,
the
but
antagonists,
like they're not even like that's the thing.
they
It's
don't
like
they don't
it's
get that much of the story.
the two characters. It's such a sole focus on their bond, their connection, and how it's like they have this mentor-mentee relationship that grows into where literally Zero's like, we're brothers. And that's how he ends up, because the whole question at the beginning of the movie, the inciting incident is, how did you get this hotel, you know? And he's like, I didn't, and I'll tell you the story, and you know. And it's because of through their bond, because at the beginning, he's so cold to him. Not cold, but just like he's a professional, and you know, he's like, oh, you have, what's your schooling? And he names off all these shit, and he's like, zero, you know, like you got nothing. But then later it's like he's crying. He's like, I'm a fool, and I love you, and we're bonded for life. You can, when I die, you can have everything I have. And that's
and he does the. I love that, and he does his will, his last will testament.
He's like, I'll write it up right now, and then he literally just starts dictating it to him, and he's like, oh shit. It's really funny. This, but I think that's
such a Wes Anderson thing, dude. I love Wes
is.
Anderson's delivery on everything he does, where it's like so pointed and like it's just like
the biggest thing I took away from this viewing, honestly, and I've always appreciated it, but this time I really focused on it more because every time watching this, I was so, I don't want to say distracted, but so overwhelmed by all the technical filmmaking, like the set design, the cinematography, the fucking amazing score, the miniatures, like everything. I was so focused on that every time that I didn't necessarily overlook it, but this time I really paid attention to the acting. And Ralph Fiennes is so fucking good in this movie.
Really good. I think I did the same thing, dude. When I first saw this, I kind of like, I guess that's sort of
like he's so charismatic and like it's great, but you don't really like,
dude, no, his
zero in on it. It's so good. It's
especially
the timing.
First,
oh god, it's
he introduces himself to he's in the group. You know, they go to the home, and all the men are there that are like trying to get the will and stuff. You know, and then Ralph Fiennes is like, I guess that would be me, darling. And like everyone stops and looks
like
at him.
just his right amount of like flamboyant. He's like flamboyant and like fancy. And like
when I first saw this, I didn't realize that like he is like, I mean, bisexual for that's what they call him in the movie. I mean, they use like the F word a lot, and like, which is, but it's like, it actually, I'm like, it kind of passes because it's totally like, he's the antagonist saying it, you know, so clearly it's like, he's a fascist, he's supposed to be a piece of shit. But then Ralph Fiennes kind of like leans into it where he's kind of just like, I am bi. But it's like, but he doesn't say it. It's not like,
he's just like, he's like, I'm intimate with all of my friends. Like basically.
Right.
Like,
exactly. That's what's great. It's like, and I think it like, it plays to
his
like
characterization
the layer of his character is because he fucking uses whatever he can to get ahead. He's actually kind of like, it's kind of a piece of shit.
He's a little skeezy for sure, but I do think he's
but
genuine
so
at the
charming.
same time a little bit.
Right, of course. No, 100%. I think you can kind of be both. I think
he is.
You can try to get things. You can do kind of deceitful things that if they if they make other people feel good, but yet you gain from it. It's like I
do think because
I love it.
I do think it's like, and it definitely shows. So it's like with Tilda Swinton's character. Like, obviously, he's, like, buttering her up because she's rich and, like, this older lady that, like, you know, obviously it worked out for him in the end. He inherited so much shit from her. But, and then, like, she leaves and he's just like, oh, we're not going to do her wishes. Like, go buy us some shit with this. And that's, like, the skeezy side. But you can tell it's so great when it's, like, he sees her body. It's genuinely, like, he's just like, this is the best you've ever looked. Like, you got your nails changed, darling. This is so sweet. And so it's just like, he genuinely cares also, and that's what makes it so. He's such a great three-dimensional character. I mean, Wes Anderson's characters are always pretty great three-dimensional characters, but it's like, but I think the emotional core between Zero and Gustav is
right. I think that his characters are kind of like one note. That's like the one thing I actually really appreciate about Wes Anderson is like his characters stay very true to who they are, and their character growth is minimal.
Yeah.
If not just kind of like more realistic in his other movies, where this movie I feel like there's there's a larger thing to gain. But
I wouldn't say, I see what you're saying. I wouldn't say one note as so much as I would say like they're not subtle. Like
I don't mean it in a negative connotation.
I know what you mean. Like
they're really stylized, I guess, in their characters.
Right. So they're like, I think some of them, I think this and Royal Tenenbaums and obviously like Life Aquatic, like the characters and their motivations and their emotions are quite complex, but they're laid out so on the surface and kind of unchanging. They're not, the way he does his dialogue is very like, a lot of times it's very fast, it's very direct. So it comes out like very, like you're saying, it's not, I wouldn't say one note, but it's like, it's so goes with like the style that it's just laid out bare. It's not subtle like another acting performance or writing might be. It's very just like on the page. They're these characters.
Like Wes Anderson doesn't. He doesn't.
Because I think they're complex. Like look at all the Royal Tenenbaums and stuff, but they're they're straightforward with their complexity. If that makes sense.
And I think like their emotional core resonates through who like the character of who they are. I think it's where it's like in like There Will Be Blood. There are scenes where acting happens, and it's like Daniel Day-Lewis is like there's so much subtlety.
That's what I mean with the subtle. It's like this one is just like
right, and like
they say it all.
I feel like they say it, but it's so well written to me.
Yeah.
That, like everything he says, I'm like, oh shit! It's like it's so raw, like so emotionally raw, and like the people just it's like it's so great to have that like they're like unafraid to say anything they want. They like they express themselves however they want, and then I love like people's like other characters' reactions to that can be so muted. They'll just be like, uh-huh. You know, and that's it. Like, and then that's the comedy, dude. It makes me so mad. So I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Wes Anderson movies don't belong in the comedy section, and that is how they're always marketed. I guarantee you, this movie is it probably says like comedy. Yep, adventure comedy is what this movie is considered. Sure. I mean, there are times I laughed, but it's like I feel like it's like Royal Tenenbaums is considered a comedy too. It's like family comedy. Like those aren't things I would give it. I don't know. It's like,
I think they are comedies.
I know, but like
first, Royal Tenenbaums is there's a couple like that's the thing. It's like they're definitely comedies, but they have stakes. You know what I mean? And so it's like they matter, and there's death and like intrigue and shit like that. But like this movie, I was roaring this movie, dude. This movie specifically is hilarious. Like some of his other ones, it's like, it's a little bit more like it's hard to call the scene with such a like. There's good comedy in Royal Tenenbaums, but that's the hardest one. It's like that one gets pretty dark. There's some like suicide attempts and stuff.
Well, and even like I don't know, Rushmore. It's like I mean, coming of age, I guess is part of it, but it's like kind of comedy's such a. I think that's such a bad. It is like it's like there's so much suicide and death and like there's so much.
That's
like,
okay though.
So much like stakes, like you said, and it's like I know comedy exists in those realms too, but it's just like I wouldn't. It just shouldn't be.
Yeah, I don't know labels. Yeah, I don't know. Fucking this is everything.
Yeah.
But
this got me, dude. The part that like got me roaring is when he fucking. When the police come and they say you're well, and I love how he always repeats it like
he's like, so you're saying that I stole it.
I'm a suspect in this, this is suspect in the murder, huh?
Immediately, like after he finishes the sentence.
Yeah.
There's the ones that got me this time. So let me paint you a picture real quick. So when I watched this, I watched it the other night, and I was gonna watch it last night. So I've been on vacation, like a small trip, and I was gonna watch it last night, 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 and I was gonna wat So I had no way of watching it, but by chance, it came on in the hotel where I was staying.
Oh, yeah, dude.
And I was super lucky because it came on in the hotel and it came on HBO, so it was unedited and no commercials.
Nice. Yeah.
So I got to watch it actually totally unfettered, but I was in a room with my 2 sleeping children and my wife who'd fallen asleep 10 minutes in. So I watched it basically on silent with subtitles on like a tiny screen in the hotel.
Okay, that's right. You were saying it was going to be an awkward way.
It was a little bit different. I had to today. I rewatched like the beginning because I'd missed out on like the music, which I love. I think the score is so fucking good in this.
The score's really good.
So I watched a little bit today so I could kind of get more of the music. Like it wasn't on silent. I could hear the acting and stuff, but it was pretty quiet. But it's the part that would get me in this one because it was, and I felt bad because I busted out laughing a couple times and almost woke up like Emmeline, and is every time they start reciting like a over the top poetry. And then it's always like interrupted. Like the poetry is a hilarious joke on its own because it's so fucking over the top. But then there's always some other joke to cut it short. And it's like always a double whammy. But the one that gets me is like Ralph Fiennes hanging off the cliff about to die. And he's like, let this be my last breath. And then he's like, holy shit, you got him. Like,
yeah.
So and then it's just him screaming.
Yeah, dude. But yeah, it's like,
but they do it with the prison going off, like he's doing the poem, and he's like, "I want to hear you," but the alarm just started sounding. So let's pick up where we were later. And
that's
then
really good. Well, no,
the food at the chow line, they're like, "We may want to start eating this because it's 47 stanzas."
47 stanzas. Yeah. Well, dude, the part that got me is when he's like, he like asks, he's like, well, did you bring your change or did you bring the disguises? No, I didn't bring disguises.
This is it.
And he's like, no, and he's like, this is it. And he goes, well, I thought he's like, we're supposed to have prosthetic noses and beards. And he's like, well, I guess maybe in the heat and it wouldn't work, like this and it wouldn't. He's like, sometimes if you have it apply it right, it's
very convincing.
And then he's like, well, did you bring something? What is it to like wash up or something? He's like, no, I didn't bring it.
It's his like perfume. Yeah.
He wants a. I know. I think there's 3 things.
Yeah.
Like hits that rules of 3, and it's like the perfume, and he goes,
I forgot.
That's when he loses.
Yeah. And he's just like, I forgot.
Yeah. Dude, it got like.
Well, that's the thing about that scene too, and that's where the good characterization comes from. That's a pivotal moment of the movie, because then Gustav is like chews him out because he has a total breakdown. He's like, I'm embarrassed. I smell, because obviously that's a huge point of contention for him. And he's like, you dirty immigrant and all this, and then he's just like, oh, so why did you even come to this country? And he's like, I fled because I was tortured in the war and everything. He's like, oh, so I guess you're more of a refugee. He's like, and then he's like, I'm a fool. I'm so sorry. And like that's a good changing moment, and like bonding from, because that's what he says. We're brothers, and then he tells him the poem, and he's just become him, like because he's doing the huge poems now. I think that's like such a pivotal scene in the movie for like the character development. But that's the thing. It's hilarious. It's tense. They're literally at a prison escape.
Yeah,
it's funny because they're stopping during a prison escape to have this fucking conversation, but it's also very like gets into their characters. It's the bonding of their relationship closer. Like, there's a lot of scenes in this movie that serve multiple purposes, and I think that's what makes it his best. Is it's so fucking tight and it's focused that like even a lot of his movies, a lot of the big actors feel like cameos. But in this one, it felt like all the quote-unquote cameos, only a couple of them felt like that. A lot of them felt like really important characters that really existed in that world and served a very important function. Like, Adrian Brody does not feel like a cameo. You know what I mean? He is a important character.
Even what's his name? He plays Edward Norton. He plays like the police guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel like a cameo. Like he does feel like a character that like becomes kind of like a big player for the climax. And like I don't know, he just
well, and it's super important to do the foreshadowing and kind of like the bookend scenes of like the first scene where they get attacked, and it's like Gustav's influence is what kind of saves them from what you would think. It's like this movie's lighthearted, of course they're going to get out of it. Even the fight feels silly. But then when it happens it again later and he doesn't have that, like, it's the going away of the times, which is like another theme of this movie, is like everything fades away.
That.
And then he's killed off screen. They took him outside and shot him. You know what I mean? It's like,
I love it. Yeah, it just like in the conversation in the 60s, he's just like, well, and Gustav was shot.
I know.
His arrogance caught up with him almost. Like, oh, you know, it's like, or he's like, his silver tongue wasn't able to get him out of it.
Not this time, you know, just one time's too many.
I guess it's more of his convictions. That's what
it's his
like,
convictions.
That scene, and like every time they get stopped in the train, even before they have like the pinnacle, like, you know, the when they make amends and he's like, oh, you're a refugee. It's like he still defends him, but it's all like personal gain. And then that's how come his character development, when he like finally says like, okay, you can have everything. We're equals now. Because before it's like, oh, he's on a work visa. Don't worry, he's with me.
Because at that point, it's principles. Like, you're going to come in and you're going to harass me. He works for me. You know what I mean?
For me, right. And that's where it's like, that's where I'm like, it's self-serving at first, and then later
Later it's totally, like, you do whatever you want to do. You know what I mean? I'm fully in your hands.
Yeah. I love when he's just like, Agatha, he's like, she's a really charming woman. He's like,
she's just so charming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's such a fucking Wes Anderson thing too, is just like weird kind of like jealousies, like young boy jealousies. I feel like.
Yeah. Oh, he definitely. Yeah.
Like, even if they're supposedly older men, like that's the entire plot of Rushmore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Rushmore, I know, right? And like, I haven't seen Rushmore in.
It's been a while.
Years. It was my favorite one.
It was my favorite one in high school for sure.
For sure. And then now I'm kind of like nervous to watch it again because I'm sure it probably cringe a little bit, but I'm sure it's still decent. It's just probably worth a rewatch and kind of to understand
for sure
where Jason Schwartzman's character was coming from in that. But anyways, on that painting, can we talk about two paintings in this movie that were beautiful? Because Wes Anderson's like, his love of art and culture and everything that exists that like is Wes Anderson. That's like basically Wes Anderson's like an old world globe wearing a scarf and like just kind of I don't know
what he is,
like,
man. He's an enigma.
Yeah, and then like, but then he'll like, I don't know, he did that like weird. He did a commercial for fucking American First.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember. I was like, hey, Wes Anderson, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, but like it's so him too, which
it
is. Like, yeah, it's funny. But anyways, the artwork in this, dude, I want to find. So Boy with Apple, it's cool, it's fine. But the print I want is the two women masturbating or whatever. Dude. The one that they hang up into like, you know.
So good. I feel like I've seen that somewhere. So I wonder if that's like a famous piece or something. Because is it for the movie? Because it looks familiar. But that's the thing with him. Everything is like rhymes with real history. Like it's flavored 100%. Just like real things, but it's just enough with him.
It rhymes because it is. It's based off an old artist who I can't remember if I find it, I'll post it. But anyways, it's like, yeah, it's influenced by another one. But dude, the guy's name is Rich Pellegrino, and he's a fantastic artist. And he was just a fan of Wes Anderson, and he did a series on Wes Anderson's films, and he did paintings of them, and they're beautiful paintings. I should post them on the Reddit. But he apparently did 7 versions of that. And I can't find him, so I'm gonna email him later after this and see if he has any that are available online. I've been trying to find them.
Just see them anyway, you know.
Like, I want to see
and then buy one.
Dude, yeah, you can get a print for $60 off his website. It's like they're beautiful, dude. I want one so bad. I love it.
You should post the Wes Anderson ones post his website or something on the Reddit. I'd like to check that out. But that's the thing. It's like that is a genuinely good and affecting painting, and it's played for such a joke too because they hang it up and it doesn't even fit the spot, and that's funny on its own. But then later when Adrian Brody noticed it, he's like, "What the fuck is that?" Like, and then all the sisters are always got like their one little murmuring lines. You know, they're like, "Who knows? Was that always there?" Like, you know.
Yeah. They're definitely just
Can we
background.
Talk about how? So I think maybe my favorite actor ever, like at least right now, I think my favorite top 3 is Willem Dafoe. I fucking love Willem Dafoe and everything he's in. He's the best part of every movie he's in, practically. But he can
melts into his character.
He
too.
is so diverse. But man, I forgot how like menacing and hilarious his fucking character is in this. Like he's genuinely intimidating and scary, but he's just so ridiculous. He just throws fucking Jeff Goldblum's cat out the window. And he's just like, like
yeah. It's such violent chaos, dude. And I love his rings, how they're all like skulls.
I know. He's got his leather pouch with like his fucking brandy and his pistol and everything. And so
that's
good.
so sick.
I want that jacket.
Yeah, that jacket's so beautiful. And then, and I just love like when he's skiing too. That scene's so like it's played for laughs, but then it's kind of intense. It's like great.
It's high velocity because I'm sure he used it's like a combination of like probably rear projection and like miniatures and stuff because that's his style.
Yeah,
is what it looks like to me.
Right.
But I remember first time watching it. That's because that was like the other than a few scenes in Moonrise Kingdom, which that's actually the one that I glossed over after Darjeeling. But
right. Is that
Moonrise Kingdom? It's like after Moonrise Kingdom, I had like a couple of those weird scenes there like that. So it threw me off the first time I watched it, watching the ski escape scene in this one, because it feels like so cartoony. Because it is, it's super cartoony. You know what I mean? It's like even when they're going full speed and he hits it, and he just like goes and he just flies off because it's just basically miniatures and stuff. And but it's intense. But first time I saw it, I was like, I remember that was kind of like I didn't like it. But now, like every time I watch it now, I think it really fits into the vibe of the movie much more. It's just, I don't know. It's really good. it's so good.
Well, right. And it's like he doesn't do like high action scenes. So like that is like, it's kind of like one of those like, oh, that's Wes Anderson's way of doing it, way of getting around doing like a chase scene. And I'm fucking more power to it, dude. It's so much nicer, so much more refreshing to see that than like if they actually just chased each other on green screen with like skis, and it like, yeah, it was like.
Well, and that's how he maintains. That's the thing is there's such an intense control over like the way that the visual style of the film, the creative output of the visuals, that it's like that's not something you can just go film exteriors of and maintain his style. You can't just be like, let's just go film, even without a green screen. It's like that's how you got to keep. He keeps when you're on a vehicle, it's mounted. And it's essentially two visions, and then you get a top shot maybe, and that's when you get this. It's the super high-paced, quickly paced, like, I don't know. It's couldn't be done any other way. I don't know. Could be done any other way. That's for him, like, it's very affecting. I don't know. It's got a vibe. We all know he's got a vibe.
And that's the thing, yeah, it's kind of like, it's like if this was your first Wes Anderson, and I'm always curious, you can kind of tell somebody's like fandom by their first Wes Anderson movie. And so like if this was your first and you loved it, I can see his older work being really off-putting. And so I actually have a coworker, and I was talking with them, and like they love this movie, but they dislike Royal Tenenbaums because it doesn't feel
blasphemous. I get it. But...
No, and I get it. And I was like a contrarian when I was younger. I always thought like, I mean, Royal Tenenbaums is like a masterpiece, so I can't say I didn't like it. But I always thought like, I was like, oh, I like Rushmore more because like the coming of age. But it's probably because I just related.
I didn't. Yeah, that was the thing. Same, because Rushmore was my first Wes Anderson, and then Life Aquatic, which I also loved, and I loved that even more when I saw it. I was like, holy shit, like because it does way more things creatively.
Right, Life Aquatic's what solidified me as
Royal Tenenbaums. I was like, I don't think I was mature enough to really like get the weight of it and get the more complexity, and that's one that every time I've watched it since then, I'm just like, oh yeah, this movie is fucking amazing. Like it's so good.
Yeah. Well, dude, and I think Bottle Rocket is definitely slept on.
Yeah, it is. I want to rewatch it.
It feels like him, and it's got a lot of his like charm and style, and so I just like I feel like that's a movie that people need to see because it's like where he came from, he actually hasn't deviated that much.
No, it's always, but I kind of want to watch them all in order because it's like you really can see the progression step by step by step. Like,
of course, yeah. I think because he pushes the boundaries more and more as he goes, and Asteroid City, I'm
excited for Asteroid City, man. Anyway, you got a money minute for us? By chance?
Let's move on. Yeah, so I did a little bit of like looking too, because I was curious. This was 25 mil.
Is that it? That's not bad.
That's cheap as fuck.
That's cheap as fuck for like all the sets and everything.
Well, what's so okay? So it's crazy. So this was 25 mil. That is his like. That's like his basic production cost. Like if you want to make a Wes Anderson movie, it's going to be anywhere from like 21 to 25 million. And he usually grosses like 45. That's kind of his like, base. For this movie, which is his highest grossing movie, it's 173 million that he grossed, which is bonkers.
On a 25 million budget?
On a 25 million
Wow.
budget.
Yeah,
So
that's
he
pretty
really-
impressive, man.
Well, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's because he had like he did fucking Fantastic Mr. Fox. Like I think that's where he got a lot of his like production, and he shot this all in like a hotel, like an old rundown.
God, that's good. Now I'm thinking about it. 25 million, man. That's crazy.
25
Like
million, that's super cheap. Well, dude, do you know what's sad?
the sets and the
Fucking
costumes and everything. Like
Life Aquatic,
The cast?
like his biggest, which I feel like Life Aquatic is his biggest movie when it comes to sets and locations and everything, because it takes place on like so many boats. It's like, and just arduous shooting, like that's fucking hard to shoot on sea, and it's like it's like his hardest one, and that was 50 million, which my limited research was his most expensive movie to make. And it only made 38 million back.
Oh, that's too bad.
Which is a bummer summer, but it's like, he's
God, I haven't watched Life Aquatic in a hot minute. That movie is because it does have a lot of scenes. Because there's the scene when they get captured by the pirates and everything, and they're on like the basically the abandoned island with the abandoned hotel and everything.
There aren't, dude, that's so fucking cool. There aren't any fucking miniatures in this either. I mean, like there are like kind of, but it's like the sets that he built are huge, dude. Or fucking like, actually, oh no, I lied. I think Fantastic Mr. Fox was like 52 million or something to shoot, or 40 million or something. It was pretty high up there too.
It's got to be. There's so many.
But
That's stop motion. Stop motion's so expensive and sad.
So it's so expensive.
Because it's so time consuming.
Yeah, it's time consuming, and it's like
You have to build every stitch.
You're rebuilding. You can't. There's nothing can be found. You have to like build.
Yeah, you're not. You can't go shoot on location.
No. Right.
You got to build every little bit from the fucking water. You got to buy and build the water.
I know. Yeah, dude. God, that's what. Oh man, I'm sad that Isle of Dogs gets so much hate because I
just rewatched that recently. I like it. Like it's super simple. Like but it's great. Isle of Dogs is great.
I mean, I get it doesn't necessarily have like the emotional core that his other movies do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But it's just like.
It's fun and it's so well animated, man. It's like, but we are not gonna go on the 100th fucking stop motion tangent about how much we're rock hard for stop motion over here.
You can see it behind me. I got like my stop motion.
You can literally see like your little armature. Yeah.
I know, dude. I love it.
That's cute. Anyway, I got a couple of Reddits. Let's see what I got.
Give them to us.
So, low-paid salaryman says, such a great movie. It has the Anderson signature, but there is something magic in this movie. You could connect with the characters, not perfect people, but lovable. The way Anderson handles the human fear to get emotionally hurt is magistral. You can feel identified and conscious of the character's situation and how they try to get over it or not. The nostalgic part talks about the gold age of the hotel and the end of it, all those memories, and that's something that will never be. One of Anderson's best until he stops making movies. We'll see if this was his best movie, but I believe it is in his top 3. And then Clones of People 2 says, I saw this when it came out and rewatched it for the first time last night. This is a wonderful film, and I love everything about Anderson's style. The unique cinematography, the quirky characters, the fast pace, the colors, the perfectly cast actors all combine to make a very pleasing watch. I feel I am watching a children's storybook come to life, and I love it. That's what I was saying. Because it is. In your mind, it sticks like that, but then it's like, I always forget. Like, I'm like, oh, that's fun. And then I'm like, oh, no, it's not. It gets intense.
Yeah, dude. Well, thank you guys for commenting. That's so cool.
Yeah, a couple
But yeah,
people say
I-
this
I
is my
totally-
favorite one. This film's a chef kiss. Just a lot of other people saying just how good it is. How much? Because that's the thing. It's like this. I think this movie is a masterpiece. Because I think about it as a masterpiece from like a critical standpoint of view. It's like I looked at every aspect of it, and I'm like, screenplay's a 10 out of 10, acting's a 10 out of 10, fucking score's a 10 out of 10. Like, and it's like I go down the road, and I'm like, I can't deny, you know what I mean? Like, I can't deny that it's just like, this is great. I think this movie will stand the test of time, honestly. Like, I think it's really good.
I think, and actually, I mean, you can never say never, but I do find this to be kind of the perfect storm. It
is.
came because Moonrise Kingdom had to come first and lay the groundwork for him working with other people and getting like he's had draw and he's had buzz, but I think that Wes Anderson was reluctant to work with big actors, you know, on his.
I think so too.
I mean, I think when he was like writing with Luke Wilson and stuff, it's like I think he was like he liked keeping it, you know, smaller and more niche and like kind of like, you know, producing with like his friends, and then I think he got like
And now he
kinda
gets
over
like the
that.
biggest fucking butt-fuck cast that I can think
Right.
of, because like the
Right.
cast for Asteroid City is just bonkers too.
Oh, it's everybody, dude. Yeah, it's like Tom Hanks is in it, I think, right, or something.
Yeah.
But or was Tom Hanks in Moonrise Kingdom? Anyways, it's like, dude, he gets so many.
No, I don't think Tom
people
Hanks
now.
has been in one in yet, because that was Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis was in Moonrise.
Bruce Willis was in that too. I know, but I swear to God. No, I'm picturing someone,
Who
but
knows?
he could get anyone he wants to work with him, which is cool. And so I don't know. I don't know what he would do.
But you really do feel that all the people that are in his movies came to him. Like, it does feel
totally, yeah.
like he doesn't feel like. I feel like. I mean, I don't know the man, but I don't feel like he writes a script and is like, you know who would be perfect for this role is Tom Hanks. Like,
Right.
someone probably Tom Hanks is like, hey, I want to work with Wes Anderson, and then they like someone through the agents is like, hey, you got a role for Tom Hanks? And he's like, yeah, he can be this guy. That'd be cool. Like,
Yeah, right.
like I feel
mean, I
like
think-
other than the Wilsons and like Jason Schwartzman, who he
And
probably
Schwartzman.
writes roles
Uh-huh.
for,
Right. And even Bill Murray.
and Bill
I think
Murray.
it's like-
I think he
that's
writes
what I
roles for
loved
Bill
about-
Murray.
I loved this movie when they all got together as the Cross Keys,
it's
and they were just that like they all like there's just
And
this like
I-
super group of like
For some
underground-
reason, I didn't notice it until. I mean, I probably noticed it, but it didn't click as well with me. But watching it this time, all the Cross Keys guys were the only people at Zero's and her wedding, and I was like,
Oh, they were.
there
oh,
was
they
just
were
them,
all
and I
there.
was
Oh,
just
that's
like,
cool.
that's nice. That's nice.
That's cute. Yeah. Oh man, and that's so tragic, but it's so good. It's like it's so like that's what he does. He just writes such human stories. It's like even though they're like whimsical, they're so relatable. And that's
Well,
like
even the way that it's told, like both Gustav dying and Agatha dying are basically told in one sentence and like an off of line, which is super affecting because it's like Zero is the narrator of the story, so it's just like, and they died, and obviously that's a part of my heartbreak, but it's like a lesser movie would be like make a big scene out of it, make a big dramatic scene out of it, but it's like, since he's the one telling the story, it's like he wants to stay away from the hurt, and he looks back at that.
yeah.
He looks back on it with like this adventure and these memories, and it's like there's pain there, but and then you feel the undercurrents of it. But that's why this movie feels so happy. But it's always got the undercurrent of like, you know, real stakes and real trauma, and like, you know, it's good.
Well,
it's real sadness.
We didn't get a Travis this time, and get anything from him. I don't think.
That's right.
I didn't receive an email. So we miss you, Travis. But
Miss you.
in lieu of that, I had a question. This is something I've pondered forever, and they've made parodies about this and shit too. But what genre would you like to see Wes Anderson make? Because I am straight up horror. I think it would be sick to see him.
Yeah,
do,
there's
like,
that
a very horror
there's
version.
that parody of the horror one with
yeah, the horror one. But it's like that's clearly
Edward
I think it's like
Norton's
a nice
actually.
thing.
It is, yeah. Edward Norton's playing Owen Wilson. He's like, oh wow, there's killers.
Yeah. But like to see like Wes
But like
Anderson
actually do horror, like actually
do
give it a real
horror,
stab.
yeah.
That'd be great.
Right. Because it's like he doesn't do. That's what's kind of fun is he like all Wes Anderson movies are Wes Anderson movies. They're all like they're not necessarily.
He's like in his own
In a
genre.
genre.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
kind of does.
right?
That's why it's
It's
like
like-
it kind of does its own thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It kind of has all those elements are like built in there. Like, dude, and that's what's so sick. Oh man, we didn't even mention aspect ratio. So when they go to the 30s, it's in aspect ratio of the 30s, and like that scene when fucking William Dafoe is following whatever the dude, the lawyer guy, Jeff Goldblum. It's like that kind of like feels like it feels super like old school like 30s.
It does. It's
like,
got like
horror,
got
like
kind of
30s
a.
suspense.
It's got like a noir vibe a little bit, for sure, in the 30s. And coming back to the score, man, this score is like, it's pretty mysterious, too. Like, especially during those scenes, too. It's like pretty intense. I don't know. Like, I really love the score. I really love the score.
Answer the freaking question.
Horror movie, obviously. Like, I'm a horror. I'm wearing a witch shirt. We were doing our fucking all the movies we love, and I have too many horror movies. Because I would be interested to see him, go try his hand at like something a little bit more like genre specific horror or like a hardcore sci-fi. I mean, Asteroid City looks kind of sci-fi, so we'll see. That or like lean into like, I want to see Aliens, but directed by Wes Anderson, like like a sci-fi action,
or even or just him doing like a true crime would be kind of cool. Him do like a Zodiac or like
dude, like, can you imagine
doing or even doing like a No Country style like that where it's like it's he still keeps it based off a book, but it's like
that would be good, like a straight up thriller though. Like I want to see him do something that's like to use his style, but like to try and make it like, again, I hate using the word quirky. I kind of feel like that word's loaded, but like take his style, but like make it less whimsical, like make it less like, ooh, it's fun and playful, but like make it like somehow darker, but still maintain his style without going back to like what his old movies were. I don't know.
Can you think of a director that has kept a consistent style for so long and for forever? I mean, he's never broke his like, even though he's like deviated from like doing slow motion at the end or like deviating from like.
Well, it's still obviously his style. I think the closest other filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino. Like Quentin Tarantino makes Quentin Tarantino movies. He's done about the same number of movies thereabouts, and it's like he's got his style of where it's like sort of humorous in the dialogue and then like thrilling also, especially in his more later movies. But I don't know. He's kind of deviated from like, I don't know. No, he's still got it. Quentin Tarantino for sure, I think, because a lot of other filmmakers have kind of.
Yeah, they'll do something different or experiment. I guess Danny Boyle kind of has kept.
I mean, Fincher. A Fincher movie is always a Fincher movie, but the content of the movie always changes. Like obviously, thrillers are his bread and butter, but he does like something like Social Network or some shit, or Mank, but it still's got like Fincher fingerprints all over. But
right, but I guess it's just Wes Anderson's the most glaring because
it's not like a Linklater where Linklater is like so diverse that you would never even you watch a movie and be like, oh shit, Linklater made this, like, because it's I feel like he doesn't want to stay in one style. If anything, the fact that he's made like 3 rotoscope movies, like that's the closest.
Yeah, right.
That it's just like he just really likes that style, but it's like all his other movies are so different too. But anyway, what was your favorite part though?
Wait. I mean, I don't know. It's always going to be a scene because that's what he does. All of his like his like shots and stuff, they're all built. They're all chain reaction to something. God, yeah. And I really
editing.
love. I mean, it's editing. Yeah.
I can't even.
I like I love a lot of like the big parts. The shootout's great. The breakout is great. The prison scenes are great. But I really like the scene with young Zero and Agatha. When he finally confesses to her, like she's sitting in bed in her like nightgown, and he like confesses that like they stole a painting, shit's getting real. If he dies, he wants her to have it, because they agreed to get married and all that. And like he's like that scene is so Wes Anderson.
So Wes Anderson, where it's like I don't want him to take it anyway.
yeah, that, and it's just so it's like it's shot so beautifully. The like all the blocking, it's like, dude, Wes Anderson, he takes days to block his shit out because it's so tight. His shit is so tight. He like just like him going up, coming back down. It's like their conversation and how he's like, oh, it's a code. You know, you have to like decipher the code. And she's like, I don't want to take it. Like, I just take it anyways. It's so good. I love that. Like, that's such a nice moment between them. I mean, in the shot of her on the Ferris wheel is really, or in the merry-go-round is really pretty.
If you're watching this on YouTube, that shot is in our opening title sequence.
Oh, it is. Oh, yeah, that's right. It is totally. I remember when I saw it when I was watching it. I was like, oh yeah.
That shot's amazing. The cinematography in this movie is so good all around.
But I don't know. I mean, I think I really love the actual Grand Budapest Hotel. Also, that miniature that was built for it is top notch.
Like the little gondola and like the whole front of the building like set into the rock face and all the pinks and purples and stuff. Yeah, it's really great.
What about you?
I think it kind of blends into each other, but like when it first cuts, when he sits him down to tell him the story and they order their food at the beginning and they get their their champagne or whatever. And he's like, it starts where it must always start. It starts with my predecessor, blah, blah, blah. It starts with, and then it smash cuts to the title card, to the part 1, M. Gustav. And then it just is him. There's like 5 seconds of him just staring out the window, just gathering his thoughts. And then there's the knock on the door and the music starts. And there's that whole tracking shot where he turns around and he walks to go answer the door. And the music comes in right there. And I'm like, every time I see that moment, I get like kind of goosebumps. I'm like, oh yeah, here it goes. You know what I mean? It's such a good preamble for it to going into the next scenes with the music and everything. I think it's really great, and starting on like kind of that close up of his profile of his face before going into that, like getting right into it and all the hustle and bustle. Like that's his moment of quiet, because there's a lot of those moments like where he's sitting in his room eating alone.
Well,
like,
dude,
that's when he has those like breathe, like his character.
You just made me connect like the emotional core, because it's like Gustav, like he traveled so he's risen so high that he owns the hotel theoretically, and so it's like he's like the highest position you can be, but he still takes his meals alone. And then that's what Zero did throughout. You know,
they say they probably have a somewhat similar past, because it's like
right, 'cause he started out as a
like even with their family too. Like it definitely seems like there's a couple hints of like trauma of the death of his family and kind of thing.
Yeah, right. Migration probably too. Yeah.
But that leading into the first scene with him interviewing after Tilda Swinton, and then him interviewing Zero he's like, "Who are you?" and they're walking through.
Yeah.
But like he's
That's
talking,
still Wes Anderson.
He's talking. It's shot so good, and the way that it's cut and edited and acted, it's just like so fast paced. Where he's talking to like 5 different people at once as they're walking, and it's like that seems like that would have taken 1 billion dog years to fucking block, because they're walking and he's just like talking to him. They're having their moment, and it does the rule of threes where he's like, Zero, you know, what kind of experience do you have? 0. What kind of education? What kind of family? And then he goes 0. And but at the same time, he's like, no, redo that, do that. Hi, how are you? You know what I mean? Doing all his customer service is just so much energy that I'm like, every time that scene, I'm just like, yeah. The whole opening of that, like, I think this whole movie is great, but that whole sequence of like when it first goes back to part 1 or whatever, it's primo stuff there, bud.
It's a fine film.
It is a fine film, sir. So, anyway, if you haven't watched it, I do think, honestly, this probably might be a good starting point, I think, because either this is a movie that, if you're not that familiar with cinema in general, or like things out of this movie's pretty out of the box visually, and so I feel like someone might see it and be like, wow, this is really striking and really interesting, and get sucked in, or they'll be turned off by it.
Yeah.
And if they're turned off by it, then it's like, okay, maybe go try one of his older movies. Go watch Roll Tenenbaums or Life Aquatic or something.
I think, I don't know, yeah.
Because it is a lot. It is like hyper stylized, that it's like such in the forefront. It's like you do when you watch it so many times and you're so familiar with Wes Anderson. Like we've seen that it's like it's to be expected, but to a like I tried my brother, like I don't think he's really liking it so far, but it's like I think it's just a lot for him. Like it's kind of overwhelming, you know.
Just stick with it, Gat. We We respect you.
Stick with it. Watch it
You
at home,
enjoy
man.
it.
Just watch it at home. 'Cause-
It's definitely it definitely like I think it benefits from like a theater viewing. If not, then like your full attention at home.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. So anyway,
I'm glad you guys.
movie's great. Yeah,
Stuck around.
stuck it out. Glenn, thanks for listening. So this next week we are doing Paul Thomas Anderson, who is probably my favorite director currently. Anyway, I don't know. It's hard to say, but
Top 5.
we don't know who's winning, what movie's winning. It's actually really close, and the poll doesn't end until tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. It's probably going to be right now. It's between Master and Magnolia, and
really?
and Phantom
God,
Thread. Phantom Thread's pretty close too.
Yeah, I thought Master was gonna win for sure, but
It's only got like 2 ahead last I checked, and then Magnolia was ahead earlier today. But now it's the Master. Now it's the Master
neck and
again.
neck.
So. So anyway, so it'll probably be one of those 2 movies unless Phantom Thread swoops in or something.
I'm happy to watch anyone, baby.
I'll watch it. They're all
Give it to me.
they're all so good. So anyway, thanks for listening. Stay tuned for that. Go on the Reddit. Get in. Tell us what you think about these movies. Vote on what other movies we're gonna watch next. All that good stuff. Patreon. Everyone who does the Patreon, thank you.
Yeah,
we got stickers coming for you. We got
Oh yeah, stickers will be in the mail.
the
baby. Don't even
movies.
sweat
Yeah.
it.
Don't even sweat it. We'll do a bonus movie too eventually. You just wait and see.
Yeah.
You
no,
just
yeah.
wait and see.
We're gonna end up doing a lot of bonus movies coming up soon.
We are. We've been talking about it. It's gonna be.
Yeah.
It's gonna be exhausting, but it's gonna be so good. Because there's such good movies. Anyway.
Yes.
All right.
Take the nectar of the film.
The film. All right. Pray cinema. There it is.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.